Welcome to Benno and Hamflett In Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic New Generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. It's In Your House 4. We're in the Great White North. And what better time to take a trip to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Hello, mates. Happy winter. It's a bit chilly.
Yeah, it's this is it. I feel like the cold snap outside is going to be less punishing when I leave the studio than what I'm about to experience sat inside of it. Normally it might be nice to talk about the local area, Winnipeg, in fact. But we know someone who's from Winnipeg, you idiot. And I'm sick of talking about him in modern wrestling too. So it just feels like a cursed wrestling destination right now.
It feels cold, doesn't it? There's something about it. And that's the other thing as well. When I said, even I did it then, every commentator on the show, it's never Winnipeg. It's never Winnipeg, Canada. It's always Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. It's like that wrestling geography that you learn over the years, isn't it? You figure out where places are. But that's it. Unfortunately, with Winnipeg, I haven't really got, maybe because it's Canada and it's not American stuff, you know? I don't have like that whimsical world that comes to mind. I just think forests, I think cold. I know that's not where it happened, but I picture Bret Hart gingerly jogging along like a snowy Alp somewhere. I know that was would have been Montreal, wouldn't it? When he was doing that ready for the
Calgary, maybe.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. He was probably Calgary around the house, but that's what I picture. Like Winnipeg is just icy, cold, and it's like that 365 days a year.
Totally. Ted Irvine's son, Chris, not taking up hockey.
No, he's from Manhattan, New York, mate. Sorry, I watched WWE in the 2010s, so yeah.
That's right, yeah. How could I be so stupid?
Edge from
whatever.
Benoit was Atlanta, wasn't he?
What was that? Benoit was Atlanta, yeah. Christian was Florida.
What was Edge? Yeah. Edge had a random one, didn't he? I feel like that might have been New York or somewhere.
I think it was New York as well, because he was like a babyface, wasn't he? So heels
Long Island, maybe.
To be from Canada, but baby faces weren't. Was that right? Because people didn't trust Canadians for a bit. I think that was the
I think that
policy.
Was the logic. I think that's.
Do you think there was any hangover from this show? Do you think that's why?
It could be spending all those long winters. It's like when what these shows remind me of is like when AEW did that run through Canada, like in the Punk time. Like, and I'll take an excuse to talk about Punk, but like Collision era Punk, where it was just I think there was a random Winnipeg stop, wasn't it? And it was just like all those stories the entire week. Well, so and so couldn't get on the plane because that plane got cancelled because it was snowed in, and it was like a battle through the elements. It was a full on Game of Thrones just to get wrestlers to the town so that they could do a bit of a collision wrestle in front of 200 people and then go home, go all the way back to America, and then travel back to Canada again the following Wednesday. It's no reason why they maybe didn't go back and do that loop again. Fed were loving it during this period though.
I was having to duck and cover when they were doing that loop because I could have sworn that was around the time that like Jeff Jarrett was briefly made like head of live events, and his first act was to like do a deal with 6 Canada shows in a row or something. I was like, oh my god, he's killed the whole country, let alone the territory.
It's done. But that's when signs are bad in other parts of the business. What do the Fed do? They come to Europe. They just go to Canada a little bit more, and that's where we are kind of today. It's In Your House 4. It is the Great White North, but yet it kind of works, I suppose. We've got some negatives when it comes to metrics from a business point of view. This is one of those great disputed ones where I think Brandon Thurston and WrestleNomics have drilled down and said that it was a 90,000 buy rate as far as the pay-per-view go for this one. Apparently around the time, and I read one of the observers around then, Dave Meltzer had been told 200,000 by a source in WWF. It was I think it was a Bruce P. Sorry, that's too obvious. B. Pritchard, maybe, that could have possibly reached out to Dave and given him that information, which definitely did turn out to be false. Because it was a 0.40, I think, was the old money when it came to those numbers. Like 90,000 was bad, even for them at this point. But like the thing that was the positive and the thing that works about going to Canada is you're still going to draw a house, because Canadians, like us Europeans, like when we supported TNA through the lean years and made them still look like a major league operation, like the Aussies are going to do for AEW, or have done for AEW at a time people will be listening to this. The Canadians do come out on the numbers at attendance of 10,339, which would be a good AEW pay-per-view number at this point. It'd be a decent Raw as well, but not numbers to be sniffed at in the lean end of 1995 winter time for WWF.
God no, what a schizophrenic time for numbers and the Fed. an all-time low ultimately, and I'm not even talking about the quality of the wrestling on the show. I'm on about the buy rate, like all-time lows at the time, and yet comfortably, easily dwarfing what we saw in Michigan for In Your House 3. What we were seeing on TV for years at that point, from like late 1993 onwards, 10,000 seater houses just were not a thing for the longest time. So yeah, it's a strange reality of what WWF, I guess, were able to do to use their words, by being like the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment. All of that bluster, all of that carny promotion, like nonsense speak that I love, was if for nothing else to kind of build that loyalty with your audiences. Like, how often have we since heard Bischoff and others talk about how WCW just could not get going in Canada, even when they had Brett, even when they were trying to push Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho and whoever. Canada was fed country and nothing was shifting it.
No, I mean, they could have tried harder, to be fair. Booked a few more Brett loops, booked a few house shows. I think that was the thing. The Canadian shows tended to happen in WCW, didn't they? After Brett was off TV, you could never get that timing right, could they? But yeah, it was always the fight, wasn't it? And it's the same here. Like, I think we are, as much as as a hardcore like fan, I think I gravitated towards WCW into the late 90s. We were fed country, weren't we? We were always fed country, even if we're like more of a hardcore base that's going to support a TNA, that's going to support an AEW into modern times as well. There's a home team, isn't there? I think it's the same in Canada.
Oh god, did you see, by the way, because we are going to talk in depth, I feel, about the aesthetics of this show and of the promotion of the show, but just because I can't forget this point, and I forgot to put it in my notes, but it's come back to me now, a slight change in the presentation of the show compared to In Your House 1, 2, and 3. They have altered slightly the WWF ident, the recognized symbol of excellence, the greatest thing that any of us will ever have in our life, the beautiful and wonderful World Wrestling Federation, is no longer just a logo flying through the sky with little flashing colors around it. It's coming out of the ground, etched in a block of stone. And is it just me, or is that because now Nitro's here? It's like, don't be wowed by the imitators on TNT. The WWF is cemented into the ground forever. It's the pillar of all of this. Eric Bischoff's shiny new toy is just our old toys that we've disregarded. You don't want Hogan, you don't want Savage, and you certainly don't want WCW. This pillar of entertainment, the motherfucking World Wrestling Federation. It was here before you were born. It'll be here after you're dead. Is that just me reading into that? Or was that sort of like, Nitro's here, it's time to get serious?
I mean, that's the thing. It ups their game, doesn't it? As far as like a TV production point of view, and like, the money that Bischoff would throw at it. The difference always, and the reason why, to spoilers for the Monday Night War, the WWF do end up winning. The reasons for that, it's that extra love and care actually underline that word is the reason. Like, we could throw the money at like, we're gonna have this great, like, it's gonna look like Times Square or whatever the street's supposed to be, and it's on fire and things are flying, and you've got like Hogan on one billboard, and then you've got Vader on the other, and then you've got all the big stars there, and they can do all that and like make it feel big, and WWF can have their version of it. The thing with WWF though is they'd be on top of it. Like they'd have like the opening such, Raw is War, and like Ahmed Johnson's in there, and there's a couple of wrestlers who, as you go along, aren't really with the company anymore. WWF makes those edits and takes those guys out. The thing that always gave WCW away, they throw all that money at it, they throw all that production at it, but like you'd have Vader still in the intro like 2 years after he left WCW. You'd have like your Hogan in the yellow and red, even though he's been in the NWO in the black and white, and now he's in the Wolfpack for reasons, and he still looks like that in the intro because nobody actually cares enough. We're gonna throw money at a problem, but nothing compares to the care and at least love and dedication it feels like the WWF side do put into their stuff, even if they haven't got the budget.
Yeah, it's the industry leader, recognized symbol of excellence for a reason, aren't you? Not, do you know where they, I don't think because of the VHS designs. I will say that.
I was going to say, do you want to know where they don't put their money? It's these VHS designs, and these VHS covers we've been looking at. I feel like, Michael, I've been building to this day, and again, hat tip to our friends over at WWF Wrestling 1 on Twitter /X. A must follow if you're enjoying our stuff and enjoying the graphics that we've managed to cobble together and the little bits and pieces of history, like amazing stuff you see on there. I'm wowed every single time. And I was wowed, Michael, when I went back to look at this this cover for In Your House 4. What the fuck? We're just going to start with, what the fuck is it? And it's not AW Grand Slam that happened in Australia over the last month or so. What it is apparently is In Your House 4. Because is that or is that not an Australian flag behind the British Bulldog and Diesel? Or does it just look it to my eye?
It looks it because it's the American flag and the Union flag cut in half for a Diesel versus British Bulldog program that had fuck all to do with where they came from, right? You would think that if you were looking at the cover of this, not only would you not know that it's in Canada, you would think it was a simulcast taking place in like Detroit and Wigan or something like that, right? Basically, where the two families were watching big screens, like when England play in the World Cup or when America play the Super Bowl or whatever, and they've got big screens erected because tonight the Bulldog is going to travel to big bad America. And in America, Diesel's going to fend off the evil foreign menace that is the Bulldog. Oh. It's just flags. What are we doing?
Like, and we know they're not throwing a lot of money at this stuff. We know it's, it's clip art, and, we've had our issues, and, in the past with the position of the letter and stuff like that. Unforgivable sin for me, this one, because it is just like, I mean, known as promos, Bulldogs, talking, I'm gonna wrestle you in your house, and he's throwing in all like the local Wigan slang and stuff. But like you say, I don't think it's actually a part of the feud, and it just feels like we need a background. What should we do? Should we go with like the weird reddy pink color and just have that the whole way through? Nah, we'll just smash two flags together and literally make it look like the Aussie flag instead. It's fucking terrible. This is the worst one we've had so far.
Famously, of course, as well, we've talked a lot about how Vince favoured just physically bigger men in a time where maybe you weren't seeing as many muscle-bound wrestlers. That's the diplomatic way of putting it. Of course, the WWF champion Diesel, the 7-footer, going up against the Bulldog, the 7'1", apparently, because he's taller. What is going on?
They haven't even bothered. That's literally the same Bulldog picture on the sleeve as well, isn't it? And on the back, they've literally gotten their money's worth 3 different times out of the same British Bulldog photo. Same smile, same Bulldogs. Everything.
I'm never not stressed out by the alignment of something on one of these boxes. And this edition's episode is the fact that there's just been no effort made to like justify or center or align the matches. Those little verses are all over the map on that thing. Like, why does the last line say Hurst Helmsley? What are we doing here, man?
The 3-way match, it's Fatu versus Hunter versus Hurst Helmsley. I think that's what they're trying to. Silver Vision, they can do a better job than this. We believe in them. We've seen some great stuff from Silver Vision. Case in point, like, do you know how much they were charging for this at the time? Well, I know the answer, Michael. Is I think you sent this over to me a few months ago, when we were getting prepped for this show. The small price of $12.99, and I know that because I've seen the full spread again from our friends at WWF Wrestling 1 Silver Vision advert for it. Despite everything I'm saying, I'd have still paid the $12.99 and the $14.99 they're advertising the 1995 year in review here for. I would have paid 10 times that. Like, that was the white whale for me as a kid, that 1995 year in review. I eventually saw it 20 years later, and it's just a couple of compilation matches and not much else going on. But in my head, this was the Bible for a WWF wrestling fan. Like the 1995 in big letters, the blue box, the little box pictures of the wrestlers. There was never a video I wanted to own more and didn't get until adulthood than that one. But worth its lofty price ahead of the In Your House, I reckon.
Well, because they were so good as well, weren't they? Like the 92 and 93 ones have been fantastic. I think the 94 one's like just looks like that, but is yellow. Like I've got memories of how much those tapes meant to me, because it was just, again, without access to television, if you were only getting select pay-per-views or select events, often some of the stuff that pieced together was worth its weight in gold as helping you build what remained of the picture of the things you'd never seen before. And I remember the 1995 one being quite disappointing, but I'm the exact same as you. That genuinely, that screenshot you've thrown up there has like kind of reduced me to feeling like a child with pangs of needing those videos and not having anywhere to get hold of them.
I literally want to get me to come on, dad, buy it. It's in English pounds. It's cheaper than dollars. Sort me out. So what if it's $30 with postage and packaging? It's fine. Get it sent over. I don't know if you were the same, but we were never one of those. Me dad. If I wanted an Everton shirt, either got me it. If I wanted Peter Beagree's name at the back of my Everton shirt, either got it for me. Graham Stewart actually was my favourite because he was also ginger, so I was a big fan. I wasn't a spoiled kid, but it wasn't like we went without. There was just something about wrestling stuff where it was like, well, no, obviously not. I'm not getting you wrestling stuff. I'm not paying to get that shipped in from America. Like, there was just a mental block where it was just like not a thing that was worth spending the money on, despite our protestations.
Yeah, I think my problem was, because I'm exactly the same. My issue was that the market value of those tapes in Woolworth had been skewed by the fact that my dad got them taped off his mates for free or from the car boot sales for £1. So 15 quid just wasn't he would just say, I just keep looking, you'll get it at car boot. And I was tearing my hair out going, you don't understand, Dad. If anybody's buying In Your House in 95, they're not shifting it for £1 in a month. Like, they're buying it because they want it. But in his mind, all those copies of, WrestleMania 6 that you see at the car boots. I was just going to find a 1995 year in review in the middle of that box. And I wasn't, and he didn't get it. Something I'm excited about that we will follow up on, because we're about to enter. It's a little, I know this has been a favorite thing of mine to compile, but we are soon about to enter the In Your House international video releases named other things. Okay. So they've been In Your House 1, 2, and 3. And I think this is the first one that forms a compilation where it's called Winter Combat. I think it's called Winter Combat 95. And it starts now. So for the next In Your House or the next Housekeeping, I'll pull together the cover of the very first Winter Combat, and we can see basically the mirror universe versions of these In Your House VHSs, because it gets weird along the way.
I never liked that. Don't mess with the timeline. Classic ROH was like that. There was a DVD timeline, there was a pay-per-view timeline, there was a TV timeline. Just keep to one, will you? Keep us straight. But
stressful. It gets stressful.
It gets mixed up. Exactly. And like we always say as wrestling fans, like, I think we've just all collectively got OCD for dates, places, times, all of that, and it just messes with it, doesn't it? When they fuck around too much. But speaking of the timeline being skewed, if you haven't listened to it already, our latest episode of Housekeeping, it was also on the feed. That will have been released 2 weeks ago. If you happen to be online at midnight on a Saturday UK time, that's usually when they drop. If you want a little early bird access, either on the Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. But yeah, on that last Housekeeping, as people will have heard, we did talk the pre-show to this pay-per-view we're going to talk about today, and some of the build leading up to it, because we didn't have a pay-per-view to talk about. We didn't have an in-between pay-per-view, like you said. This was we went straight from In Your House 3 to In Your House 4. There's no big 4 pay-per-view right in the middle, so that messes us up a little bit. But it is a good little bit of history to go straight into another In Your House. And unfortunately, as if we watched the Netflix edition, and I don't think we'll be able to source it, don't think we have any dark matches for these ones either on In Your House 4 either. Little around for Bob Holly versus Rad Radford, but considering it wasn't rated on Cage Match, I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah, we continue to be sad that what we've lost from the dark matches now includes Ahmed Johnson's flame tights and a grunge rocker versus a race car driver. But I kind of wish that Joni Wilson's rendition of the Canadian anthem was left off the tape with those dark matches, because as much as I enjoyed the visuals of Canada that they played over the top, she didn't have a great night, did she?
Maybe we can swap. I don't know. Do I actually want to see Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem? Actually, I'm not sure. That can stay in the bin. But yeah, she opens us instead.
Do you know what's weird? This is probably the best place to raise this, because we're going to talk about Bret's involvement in the main event later on. Did it not strike you as weird that they're in Canada and Bret and Owen are in the dark matches?
Massively. Like, what are they doing?
What's going on there?
It's very New Japan, isn't it? Because it's like the G1s, you know, when they run like the alternating shows with the different blocks, and the poor bastards who've worked 15. Ishii's just literally snapped his own neck off and put it back on again like 9 different times. You know, we had Shibata's brains fell out of his head and been put back in again, and they just happen to have a show the next night that they're not in a match, so they throw them in a multi-person for the live crowd. It's not really for you at home. It's to make sure they shift some tickets. I kind of get that same logic here, that it's for the live crowd. But considering the situation we're in, considering, as we talked about on Housekeeping, Shawn, you know, I know it's late, but Shawn's not here, Undertaker's injured, like, stop playing this game. Stop alternating Brett and Sean. You can just have them both on these shows because you know what it'll do? It'll make the show better. Like, you're going to pay him anyway. He's still going to work a match. The crowd is still going to see him. Put him on your fucking pay-per-view. Like, even if it was him and Isaac Yank, I'd watch it. Whatever. It's Brett, isn't it?
You know, like, sort of, you imagine, and obviously this is not what any wrestling company ever sets out to put on a bad show. But let's be real about this one. Never mind the Great White North. It's the Great White Board of bad ideas. And this show is just one after another, after another, after another. If somebody was to tell you, oh, I've actually got the inside track on In Your House 4, and did you know that they actually intended to make one of the all-time worst pay-per-views? You'd kind of believe it because every bit of evidence stacks up. Oh, you put Brett and Owen on, don't you? No, dark matches. What? Oh, and it gets worse from there. Like, it feels like there have been attempts made to make this a bad wrestling show, and that's just the start of it.
For my sins, because I'm on the Benno and Hamflett YouTube channel, I often get, and I've watched a couple in prep for these shows, Bruce Pritchard clips of the time. I've given up now because he gives you nothing. Like, he literally clearly doesn't remember any of it, and I'm not even sure he's even watching the pay-per-views back when they're recapping them. But the clip I saw was like Conrad pressing him on, like, you know, this is regarded as one of the worst in your houses. Like, what went wrong? Can't give you any answer. Doesn't really know why. He sounds like an embittered Premier League manager, but he's kind of like, you know, we had a lot of injuries, you know, at the time, and there's only so much we could do with the squad that we had and all of that, but he can't really give you a real answer. He'd never be able to tell you, why wouldn't you just put Brett on the show? Why don't you book things a little bit better? Why don't you at least give the people who are coming and watching a bit of a happy ending instead of a sad one? But the thing that I enjoyed about the clip that I saw was that he suffered, because he was like, yeah, and to be honest, I hated watching this one back and it was a fucking pain. I was like, well, at least one of the people responsible 20 years later had to sit through it too, so I'll get that little measure of revenge. But like, yeah, it is, like, there's clear fan service you do there, and I guess it's just what they're thinking at the time. But like you say, we start with the national anthem. I did have on my notes by who, so I'm glad you filled in that trivia note. Solid national anthem, the Canadian one, not as good as the American one, obviously, better than ours, but it's up there. 7 out of 10 national anthem for me. But it goes straight to if we leave off where we were in housekeeping. Gorilla's actually made his mind up now, you see. Less vagary now. As you know, just a few minutes after the paper starts, actually, he's gone, you know what? Yeah, I've got my paperwork together. Know what I'm going to do now, as due to the severity of Shawn Michaels' concussion. Dean Douglas is going to get the Intercontinental belt, and all rights and privileges of that title go to Dean Douglas, who will not have an easy ride, as he is going to be facing late replacement Razor Ramon later in the night. And thank God they managed to get it sorted, Michael, because they could have gone to the ring with no challenger for Dean Douglas. You know, those poor pay-per-view buyers might have never found out. It
would have been a total embarrassment for the company, and luckily there's no more of them coming elsewhere on this show. It's a bastard's trick from the off. You're left with a bad taste because you can smell carny bullshit a mile off. We've talked in depth for those that have listened to Housekeeping about obviously what's happened to Sean. We'll probably get on again later on. And I don't know if you noticed this, but if you watch this on Netflix, maybe with the headphones in, I think I was watching, that helped. If you block Gorilla out in the background, you can hear Vince McMahon himself hyping up the live crowd because he knows they're about to cut live.
Oh, and no way.
I didn't get in my notes a specific wording, but you can definitely hear him playing hype man for the live crowd because he knows in a minute
doing Tony Khan
to the live crowd.
Dynamite.
It's going to be great. It's going to be happening. All that sort of stuff. I'll tell you what though, like, to be fair, because we were really critical, weren't we, last month, Benno, of how already you could see the Kliq, and especially Razor Ramon trying to sabotage Dean Douglas. At least the belt has landed with Dean, and we're not going to get anything like that. So I've got to hold my hands up and say maybe I was wrong to go in two-footed on the Kliq the last time over this.
What was Shane Douglas moaning about all those shoot promos in ECW for the years since? Nothing, like you say, could possibly go wrong, but we find out. But yeah, speaking of Vince, we get a weird production snafu where his introduction to the show seems to get cut off, as is I think there's some miking issues throughout the show again. You know, it's we're on hard times during this period, folks. But we do have a bit of a wealth in the booth, as we have another the 3-man booth is back here with Vince, JR, Jim Ross, and a very clearly freezing Jerry the King Lawler, who's out there as well, who's just mostly annoyed that he's in Winnipeg, which I can understand.
I always liked Lawler's ongoing feud with Canada because it was always an extension of his feud with Brett, wasn't it? So I love that. Just quickly, so the intro to In Your House this time around, as we've said, they're still obsessed with showing old In Your House clips as a way to be like, it's good, we promise, In Your Houses are good. But this time, there was B-roll footage of like people arriving at the building, people buying hot dogs, people buying T-shirts, fans chanting "In Your House." And the only thing that now goes through my head is that the full B-roll footage of that exists somewhere. Get it on the vault. Like now we know that they're going into those cupboards and pulling out those old tapes. How many takes did it take before those fans all said "In Your House" together? I need the raw footage, if only so that we can review it for housekeeping. And you know what I'm going to bring up now? The logo has once again been allowed through the front door, and it parks its arse on the sofa. And just to further highlight what a kind of mess of ideas of the show is it Great White North? Is it Great Britain versus the United States? Or is it Halloween themed because now there's pumpkins on the set of the house graphic? They do not know their arse from their elbow for this pay-per-view. Doomed from the off, man.
Too many cooks. I think that's what's going on backstage at WWF at this point. But I'm just glad our mate in the logo department still works there. Maybe not for longer with the job he's doing here. But yeah, I'll have to laugh at that myself. We'll stay on our logo watch. But yeah, we go from that and the commentators into our opening match here on In Your House 4. Which is a couple of guys that we might well know quite well in Make a Difference era Fatu, or Just Say No Fatu, according to his pants. In there with Hunter Helmsley in the match that I'm dubbing Michael as the realization of every podcast, where Rikishi goes on and goes, "Push my sons away, you fuckers," despite the fact that they're like main event in WrestleMania and like the main storyline on every TV show. You'll still jump on a podcast, won't you, and go, "Oh, I just don't know what they're doing with the lads this week. It's unbelievable." This felt like Tripp's revenge here as he's bumping around for Fatu. It was like the realization of something very modern and current.
It was also the realization of something very of the time, because did it strike you as worth noting that when he was fighting a member of the Kliq, Fatu came out with the big BSK letters on that hat? This was the turf war made real.
I thought he didn't support gangs. I thought he was fighting all that type of stuff. You got to make a change. You got to make a difference, man. Even as a kid, I thought that act was so fucking lame. Like, it was just like, gosh. Oh yeah, it's the whole like 80s just say no to drug stuff, isn't it? So yeah, I'm gonna listen to, because the cast of Saved by the Bell are telling me, because fucking Jake Roberts is on like the back of a magazine telling me. I suppose that's the man I should be listening to here. Like, what a guys for a babyface. Who comes up with that as like because there's a lot of that, isn't there? A lot of the same characters from the early 90s WWF are obviously still here, and weirdly, a lot of the same characters from like Attitude Era WWF that we'd obviously become familiar with as well. But like the repackaging organization is they've missed one here with Fatu.
I remember thinking, like, all I liked about this was I liked how colourful Fatu suddenly was, and it just made me wish that you could have had the head shrinkers in like neon colours instead. Like, I'll take the head shrinkers in red tights and blue boots. Like, get Sione or get Samu back and just dress them like this, and I'll just have like neon head shrinkers instead. This guy, it was so lame. It was so weak and like one note, and
Jacob Fatu it is not or Rikishi Fatu, to be fair, because that's the other thing this match gives me. Like, it's like, it's a lot of, because Triple H is like bumping around in his t-shirt, in his shirt, his white shirt. He looks a bit like Gangrel at points, shades of that from the future that would come. But the biggest shades of future came to me watching this, and I'd imagine you were thinking the same. I was just thinking of that fucking great SmackDown match with Rikishi and Triple H. Weirdly, only 6 years later, 5 years later, not much. Yeah. Like, and it's the same thing, isn't it? Triple H just bumping his ass off for the bigger man, just with much less effective characters for both of them.
These two cartoon characters were the two men that orchestrated hitting Steve Austin with a car.
The blonde, and Billy Gunn was there, the red herring, he was there too.
Yeah, what a world, man.
It all connects. But yeah, it's built very much like that match. It's like they've clearly got a chemistry there, and it's like, again, you just don't, just part of your brain, isn't there, just doesn't connect the two things. That, of course, Rikishi and Triple H had good matches together. Of course, they had that boss 10-man tag with the Radicals on a Raw, because they've been fucking working with each other for like half a decade. At that point, it just doesn't feel like it. But like, I think this is a really well worked match. It's a lot of Hunter heat. Fatu tries to put him over with the that daft clothesline bump that he does in every match. There's a bit of Samoan no selling in there as well. I feel like this is like a rudimentary version of the better matches they'd have later, but there's a clear chemistry there for me.
Yeah. Fatu doing the stuff like as you say, the clothesline bump, the getting the neck trapped in the ropes, willing to do all the stuff that he does when you can tell he's actually trying to get somebody over. And speaking of over, just like the big takeaway that I kept like coming back to about this match, how instantly over was the pedigree. Not just hitting it, but anytime it was teased, like the fans weren't buying much. They weren't really buying a lot of Hunter Hearst Helmsley or making a difference Fatu. But it does show you that like the wrestling will still underpin everything, because they knew Triple H had a kill shot, and they were coming. You would just hear that like sort of that rising noise every time it looked like he might get the double underhook in. And then he must have felt then, I've got something here. I've got, if nothing else, I've got that.
Yeah, maybe they'd seen the GIF. I suppose GIFs weren't a thing then. Maybe they're on Kazar early. So no, that one where he kills the jobber, but he thinks it's a pile driver. Or he just goes up for it, thinks it's a tiger driver, and he drops him on his head. Yeah, I remember thinking it was a really cool move at the time. Like, oh, that's a bit different. That's a bit modern feeling. Obviously, he has to do that because he gets a DDT, and of course, that gets no sold because Samoans or whatever the logic is, into a very Jimmy and Jay looking super kick from Fatu, doing it before Sean. I'm sure he wasn't happy when Sean took it on as a finish, but yeah, as you say, the finish is that he misses the big splash off the top, and it's straight up to the pedigree. But there is something cool about it when Hunter does it on a bigger man. It's a bit. It never. To be fair, it depends on the big man. When it's someone like Kane who's like a shithouse and takes it on one knee, no. But when it's someone like Rikishi / Fatu who's willing to take it on his head, brilliant stuff. And it does. It's a heel kill shot that is over, and you don't get many of them.
I like it when you see that happening for wrestlers. Like it does happen. We've seen it happen with Sean with Sweet Chin Music, and it's happening with Triple H. It's a bit like Austin figuring out how best to use the stunner, isn't it? Like the first time it's like he's got to back into people, and then it's like then it becomes a shock, then it becomes a kick, and you've got that with Triple H here. Like there'd come a time when it would flow, whereas at the moment it doesn't matter because it's the impact that's the difference.
That's it. There's that like logic to, you get to pop for grabbing the one arm, then it's the other arm, then it's the actual hitting it. You see that later on with Razor Ramon a couple of times on this night, how over just a pure tease of a move there can be. But very much the execution there. What do you make of the Fatu clothesline bump before we move on? What do you think? What do you make of wrestlers? I was going to ask you this. Who have that like definitive bump they do? Like I'm thinking like the Fatu clothesline bump that he does most matches, or I suppose it's the reverse, but Joe catching people in the corner and doing the ST Joe, or the one Rey Mysterio was doing for a while where every single heel would launch him across like the canvas to the outside and he'd take that front bump. I mean, I feel like we should be protecting kayfabe in 1995. It's a bit of a coincidence that this just keeps happening to Fatu. I don't know. Any favourites of the genre of that type of spot? And thoughts overall?
I mean, the ultimate one, it is all about the person doing it, because I think you can see it when wrestlers get a bit overexcited. I'd say the best and the worst examples. The worst, as amazing as it looks, but like the Chris Hamrick bump, where he runs and slides back through the ropes. Like because it's the Chris Hamrick bump, it loses all its impact. Because well, I'm watching a Chris Hamrick match and he's doing that. The best of the best of the best, not to step on the Bret Rowe toes, is Bret taking the turnbuckle sternum first.
Yeah, true.
Like the whole point.
Why doesn't he turn? Why does everyone else turn and Bret doesn't? Why?
and yet, when you're in the body of one of his matches, you've forgotten that that's what happens. So you're always shocked by it. It always puts the opponent over because the opponent's got the strength to drive him into the post. So there is, I think it's case by case. Fatu would get a bit greedy with his clothesline, and have a word with your agent because another wrestler that used to do this bump a lot needs it more later on.
Yes.
And I think this would have been one of those times where like Marty and Fatu maybe should have had a moment of like, I'm going to need that one more, mate. I think. And
the agent, bro.
I just, those little things pick up like when you spot it later on in the show. But yeah, ultimately I thought this match was like an over delivery from what I was expecting, because I don't really associate Triple H with having much in his locker for a lot of years. But it was a pleasant surprise. It was nice to review. And I guess I'm at Michael Hamflett on Twitter /X.
It's as good as it gets, folks. Lightweight, 200 pounds, less muscle. Paul Levesque is probably as good as we get in this car. But I say that actually as well. Yeah, it probably is a good time to cut off, because the praise for me begins and ends with the match. Because the post-match with like Lawler doing the interview in Triple H, and this is where you realise what a fucking pretender that phony cunt is. Where he's just doing Regal, and people know my history with Regal, not a fan, but he's just doing a bad impression of a William Regal British accent. Oh, this is what British. I guess he's supposed to kind of be British, or he's like British in the way that like Niles from Frasier kind of had a British accent, but he was American. It's fucking weird. And yet it's a big tease of, ooh, is he gonna get slopped by the hog farmer? Garbage.
Rubbish, aye. And the thing is as well, whether you like it or not, we've got a bit of a LTST, some long-term storytelling here, because Triple H and pig shit is going to factor very heavily into some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the future. So lock in and strap in, because this is only the beginning.
I'm glad to live through this. Our guest last time, me and Matty on it, and Grapple will be off and have that conversation of how like we've all just Mandela affected our way into like, well, you know, after the curtain call, you know, they couldn't give Triple H the King of the Ring, and then also he also had to lose to Ultimate Warrior as a result of that. And it's like, hang on, none of that timeline makes sense. That's not what. But oh yeah, and also he had to face Henry O'Goblin and all of these things that become legends. I know they happen in pretty much the reverse order of that. But we're gonna chronicle it, and we're gonna find out if he was badly done by. But yeah, rotten angle afterwards, and it does go to the Bulldog promo I referenced before, where it's basically, and there's one of these, we didn't really mention it on the pre-show, but like, you know, he's flexing and Corny's just talking over him. That's where they explain that he's British Bulldog now and not Davey Boy Smith. And in this one, it's a backstage version of it where it's very much the same thing. Davey's flexing, gets a little bit of promo time where he talks about he's going to get you in your house. And I can't even say, as a Liverpool person, I can't do a Manchester accent, but he very much, he has that, as you said about me, very much a square accent here and very much a square haircut, as this is our first, I think, proper close-up of Buzz Cut Bulldog after last month's shenanigans, and it just something about it just doesn't feel or look right.
Bulldog's got this way where like I picture his words because they're also joined together, like In Your House or Monday Night Raw. Like they're like sort of little, they're like
one syllable.
Just one syllable, one long line. I picture them as like little Tetris pieces, and can they drop down and form a line and sound like a perfect sentence, or are they just gonna, you know, when you get it wrong on Tetris and you put the L the wrong way around and it blocks one of your lines?
Totally.
Bulldog cutting a promo. It's just that Tetris, that's his head. To the point where Cornette is a mile a minute. He's amazing. He's great. Oh, yeah. And then like he goes to Davey, come on, fire up, Bulldog. And it's like, I need something, mate. Like marble mouth, Lego mouth, Tetris mouth, Davey, and Cornette's bang, 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 bang. Come on, Davey, fire up. In your house, Monday Night Raw.
Got an idea, Michael, with all that praise. Like, I feel like we should try and travel back to 1985 and tell them, you know what you should do? You got something there with this British Bulldog. Have a main event, 2 fucking In Your House pay-per-views in a row. That'll be a great idea, won't it? Clearly they saw money in that. We've got another one to go. Introduce
you to my friend 1996. Jesus Christ.
Oh God, it gets even worse.
Are we gonna like sort of do away with the common consensus and the sort of the stereotype of the British podcaster being like, ugh, all they talk about is Daddy and Haystacks and Regal and Bulldog. This is not the podcast for praise for those 4 men.
Absolutely not. And we get a version of Daddy and Haystacks later on in this show, and it's about as fucking good as those matches were. But we'll get there. But yeah, after the In Your Ass promo, we move to the tag division. And yeah, as we kind of talked about on Housekeeping and earlier on, we have our follow up to In Your House 3. As yes, for those who skipped Housekeeping, and shame on you if you did. No, the tag team champions aren't Shawn and Diesel. Yes, they are the Smoking Guns, Bart and Billy. Shenanigans is why that is the case. And yeah, doing the first of double duty on this show, we have Razor Ramon and the Kid. And we can get into some background and some talk of the match, but I'm sorry, Michael, I've got you on the show and you're wearing a very nice purple t-shirt right now. I've got to go straight to you. Not on the fashion of the Cowboys, Billy and Bart, but on this purple matching gear for Razor and the Kid. My God, do they look $1 million here.
Oh, if I had roses in my hand, I would throw them at the screen, Benno. You have been right to isolate the t-shirt and the background. It's not a fucking accident, pal. Oh, my God. Razor and the Kid here. Razor has a history of this, by the way. He teamed with Flair at the Survivor Series 1992, and they wore matching purple as well. But it's such a cool color on the pair of them. I think they teamed together once before and worn red. And again, what I love about attire is not just when it looks class, but when it serves a purpose or when it has a message. The Punker is absolutely amazing for this. They are trying to display unity. They're trying, like, it's all show and no go. They are not unified, but they're trying to pretend that they are. It's all very much perception is reality. Behind the scenes, the matches on Superstars, the stuff that happened in Your House 3. things are not rosy in Razor and Kid's garden, but what do you do when things aren't good? You have that stiff upper lip and you try and pretend like everything is great. So, of course, they'd go out and get matching gear. Did you see the Kid throwing up the wolf horns as they walk down to the ring? That's the second gang sign we've had after the BSK thing. And while I am talking about aesthetics, it would be remiss for me not to put over Billy Gunn for at long last arriving in the 1990s, 5 years deep, with that lovely mid-90s boy band haircut. Funnier here because nobody told Bart. Bart's like, your Tasha's gone and your mullet's gone. Were you going to fucking tell me, mate? Because I'll look like 1993 here.
Do you think that's how Billy gets in with the lads? Well, when they're going on the night out, it's not Billy and Bart that get sent to the wrong place. Like, oh yeah, Bart, I'll see you there, mate. I'm going to ride with the lads. If you and Bammer, you go get the bus, right? That'll take you to downtown Syracuse.
Get the drinks in. We'll be there in 10. Yeah.
Just leaves them behind, gets in with the cool kids. I think there's sort of two.
Yeah. No, they looked amazing, didn't they? They looked amazing.
You get your first view of it, obviously, in the backstage promo for Razor and the Kid. Mang, I always enjoyed that from Razor. It's the last remnants of the Scarface impression, and obviously we've been teasing, like you say, a turn. They're like that married couple where like the husband cheats on the wife, and then the next weekend you see them in the local pub on a Friday making a big display about the fact that together. She's got a new handbag, and they're all over each other in the corner of the pub, just making sure we're still together. There's a lot of that going on with the Kid.
I think Razor bought. That's why they're in purple. Razor bought the Kid's gear for him. Here you go. Like the hair ruffling like it's fine. Yeah. JR as well after the interview being like, Razor, one eye on the Intercontinental title match, I suppose. You probably don't give a shit about this. Yeah, whatever. That's his weekend away from the family. But I've got to say as well, like Kid, having just on again, if you haven't listened to Housekeeping, we talked about 1-2-3 Kid early in his run, teaming with the Genetti. Put a bit of bulk on here. Looks a lot better. Maybe it's just the $1 million gear covering things up, but definitely you can see a difference only a year or so later. But that's we're the two lads. Like, this is like, for all intents and purposes, we talk about Billy and Bart being kind of losers. This is supposed to be a babyface versus babyface match. But my overarching take, we'll get into the minutiae of the match. What a pair of cunts Kid and Razor are in this match. Oh. Like, Kid especially, because obviously we're teasing something for later on. But Razor's just as bad. From the off, they do like that pretend handshake thing with the guns. And then, like proper like 90s stuff, isn't it? Pull your hand back and do your own hair. Yeah. And Razor's a bit more on it than Kid is in the moment. And you can tell the real life Scott Hall's loving it. I don't know if it's just me. Billy Gunn looks genuinely pissed off. Billy Gunn looks like you just made me look like an absolute cunt here. And it carries on like that for the rest of the match. No, make no mistake, this is the Smoking Guns, the Cowboys versus Scott Hall and Sean Waltman at the back of the bus taking the piss. Like, you can tell they've got that little devil in their eyes. And you're right about the Kid. It's part of the character. It's important that the Kid continues to act out ultimately. And and I use those terms on purpose because him being a child and him throwing tantrums with Razor, with the guns, obviously ultimately factors into where we get in a few in your house's time. But Scott Hall, man, he gives them that look, the guns, and then he does like a sort of pew pew Cowboys, and he couldn't make them more look. You're not supposed to tell your audience that you're fighting cartoon characters. Yes, we know that you're a bit more credible than a lot of your opponents, but don't tell me that. I'm 10.
Yeah, he's Lone Wolf Scott Hall. He's literally doing all this, making fun of the giant before he does his chokeslam, which he does a version of in this.
Yes.
He's doing all that. They are just eating them up. And like I say, it is half the story. But for Kid, not for Razor. And they just, that's pretty much like the story of the match. Obviously, you got Lawler on commentary making fun of Kid's hair and trying to even things out a little bit in there as well. But a low-stakes babyface grappling between Razor and Bart in the early going, just to kind of remind you that we're all goodies. But that's the story of the match, like in a really weird way. And again, because it's the kayfabe story too, the big point of the match is Kid pulling the rope down, isn't it? And Bart going flying, which is a pure heel move, which is clear telegraphing of what's coming. But the problem is the crowd don't react like that. The more these cunts cheat, the more they cheer for them, and the more they boo the Smoking Guns. The Smoking Guns could not be more unlikable losers through this match. Like the aggression, maybe it's an early sign of what's to come, but it feels like the aggression and the heelish side of what Kid's doing and is clearly rubbing off on Razor just makes them more endeared to this crowd as the match goes on.
It's the paradox of the Kliq problem in 1995, isn't it? They're sat in the car, they're sat in the van going from town to town. and they're booking the territory and they're saying, look, like all of this stuff we do, we need to be in control of this company because the fans actually respond to the things that we do. So then they get a bit more control, and then they get more responses from the fans as if to prove them right. But as a result, it stops the fans investing in the storylines, because all that happens is they're invested in the Kliq. They don't care that the dudes with attitude are fighting Yoko and Bulldog, or that they're siding with the Smoking Guns. They don't care that the Kid and Razor are embroiled in something with Dean Douglas. They care about the Kid and Razor. And the Kliq are pretending, wow, they believe in us. We just want to help the product. No, there's 5 years, and you're looking out for 5 years. No more, no less. It's so, and I mean, we're going to get to a, yet again, worst example of this, history repeating itself elsewhere on this card in Disgusting Burial Part 2, apparently. But like, it's like there's an exchange in this match. Like Billy Gunn and the Kid have this like 100-mile-an-hour exchange midway through. It's a really strong hot tag. Best pure athletes in the WWF, right? Good stuff. The tag, as you say, the tag formula is switched up because Kid and Razor are playing heels, even though they're being received as baby faces. But the problem is, the Kid, like the Kliq, have worked out stuff in their head, in the van. So you've got like Razor doing the sack of shit on the Kid, onto the Guns. Yeah. And the fans care more about the characters. So how else are they supposed to respond to that but without a pop? Like, what do you expect from these people but anything other than, I like those guys, I like that move. Cowboys are idiots. I think I prefer the baddies. Like, how else is this going to get received?
They know what they're doing. They absolutely do, and it kind of fits the story. Kind of in a way fits the story of the match. We have a bit of a Dean Douglas there making notes, don't we, on literal physical note paper. They get a bit of an image of that. But once they come back from that, it is like almost again the babyface shine, or what should be of the Smoking Guns, is basically just heat, and like to the point where like they do that really cool suplex drop kick combination with Bart and Billy. It's a big babyface move. Heel heat. It's like a heel spot there at that point. They're basically doing Quebec stuff just because they have to, and that kind of builds up to, despite them being the gobshites through the match, like you said earlier, the hot tag for Razor Ramon, which is fucking hot. It gets a gigantic pop. There's the big tease, at least the first one of the night, of the Razor's Edge. The roof comes off, to your point earlier. Like, the people are dead. It's one of them. True to this day, isn't it? Like, WWE fans, Fed fans, once you get a finish over, you want to see you do your thing. Want to see you do your finish. Want to see you do all your poses. Want to see you do all your catchphrases. And you say they're not into the wrestling. Maybe they're not into the overall story, but they're into the moves. They're into the famous things that I've seen someone do on telly. I want to do see it. And the molten pop that Razor gets for the Razor's Edge is massive here, which sets up the finish brilliantly. I'd forgotten this element of the story because I'm hook, line, and sinker. Despite everything we just said, I am still hook, line, and sinker into this Kid Razor story, because at least between them two, there's no one-upmanship, and they are trying to tell like this longer-term story with the both of them, and it's brilliant stuff. I'm whoever came up, it's probably like a Cornette or a Bruce Pritchard idea. Kid wanting that tag on the apron, not letting Razor just get the win against these two fucking scrubs who are just having to lie around selling while they're doing this bloodline-esque drama. Gets the tag that he wants for. Razor's looking on like, really? You want me to let you in now? Really? The commentator's like pulling on, going, why does he want to get in? He gets in, he goes for the pin, and like, irony of ironies, gets rolled up and beaten by the Scuns. And again, maybe another member of the Kliq wouldn't have done this. This is more of a Waltman thing that he can get away with because he's still smaller and undersized and more of an underdog. But it makes him look like such a cunt, and it's a great. It is if your way in is to like, you're not really caring about the Smoking Guns and protecting them, but you are caring about this Razor and Kid story and protecting them and telling that story. It's an inspired finish that I'd totally forgotten took place here, and it's a great little note in the story.
Yeah, it's the highlight of the match, because I think the one. You've kind of alluded to it there, really. It's the one point where the reaction actually marries up with what you're seeing. So the Razor's Edge is the Razor's Edge is the end. When he hits that, somebody's getting beat. So the fans, as you say, are just locked in for the title change, and then it's the Kid that like noses the whole thing up for the not for the baby faces, but for the fans' baby faces. The Kid's ruined it. So the fans have no sympathy for the Kid. And then when the Kid batters the Smoking Guns, steals the belts, really babyish stuff, the fans are completely with it. They're in lockstep. You screwed up. Why are you the one booting off? Why are you the one kicking off? It could have been simple, kid. You could have had it, but you were young, you were impetuous, you were stupid. Like it's the one time in this entire presentation where the characters are actually married up to how the audience wants to enjoy the characters. And like to that point, even after the fact, when Razor sorts it out, he still does it in that sort of, I can call him a dickhead and slap him around, but you can't. Like, it's not, he's sympathetic to the Guns, but it's not like he wants to be their mate. Kid's his boy. And the fans can see that, and they're picking up on, if these two split up, I know whose side I'm going to take. I know who's the one who's the more level-headed of the two. They're kind of seeding it really nicely for what's to come.
Yeah. He has his cake and eats it too, isn't he? Like, he's just as much of a cunt as Waltman through the entire match. But you're right, it's that little, but calm down. Why are you taking their belts? Yeah, lads, here's your belts back. It's not me, it's him. I don't know what's up with him. But anyway, I'm gonna go home. We'll have a talk about it. We'll make some tea. We'll have a pint next week. We'll make up for it. All of a sudden, he's just that really just nice, the one who calms down the knobhead in the group kind of friend. And he plays it well, and that's the character he's supposed to be throughout this entire match. That maybe he wavers from being. But I enjoyed the little post-match shenanigans in there as well. But yeah, from there we move on to our next match, and as we talked about, we have the debut of a new character in the World Wrestling Federation. Go on.
Can I? And I wouldn't. We like to talk about Doc Hendricks, and if nothing else, because we like to laugh at how he's actually only about like 34 years old at this point, which seems impossible to yourself in your 40s and me. I mean, I'm a lot younger, Benno. You see,
14,
I'm in my
30s. Come on,
we're all in our 30s. I don't like to say that there's a 9 at the end of my age. I'm just in my 30s. But Doc, I've wrote this down word for word. I pissed myself at this line. Doc Hendricks is selling the Sean and Brett cardboard stand-ups from the Todd Pettingill pre-show, right? And he's got them both there. And much like Bulldog and Diesel on the cover of the DVD, they're the same size, even though Brett's taller than Sean in real life. They're the same size as cardboard. And Doc, he turns to the Sean one, and he says, ladies, imagine having Shawn Michaels in your house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then he turns to Brett. And I am not making this up. He goes, kids, imagine having Brett watch you sleep.
See, I'd be into that as a 10-year-old, but yeah, that sounds great. Of course, Bret Hart will look after me. He's a hero.
Just in case you couldn't figure out between which goodie to back at WrestleMania 12, it's the Shagger or the Nonce. Who's it going to be in the Iron Man match? Pick your poison.
To be fair, if you did have to pick somebody to babysit your kids in the mid-90s, it'd be Brett over Sean, if we're all honest.
You're going with Hitman. You're going with
probably
Hitman.
Better shout.
But it's 1-800-Titan-91, and then Brett's cardboard cutout starts to fall over. So
$25 as well. Each of these fucking things are as well. Saying that, I'll probably pay that. I'll probably love one to have them just behind me.
It comes with that blank tape as well, doesn't it? That unmarked blank tape.
A classic. Do that tape. I feel like my theory behind that is just the flogging old fucking 80s Hogan stuff, and they don't want to say the word Hulk Hogan. I'm pretty sure that's what you're getting in it. Like, that's what's coming in. If anyone got one, if there's any Americans out there who ever, I'd love to know that. Did you ever dial this number? Let us know in the comments somewhere, or tag us on Twitter. I'd love to find somebody who've got one of these mysterious blank tapes for the low price of $25. But yeah, we did go from there. I was going to say into our big debut, which of course is a re-debut of Marty Jannetty's eyes rolling into the back of his head. But the new character is actually Dustin Rhodes, aka Goldust, who does a little pre-match interview before we get to the match. And speaking of this is a weird debut for Goldust, the big premiere that we've been building up to. And as with Housekeeping, I feel like the big story is Marty's back, surely. That's the story. As a kid, I'd probably be like, Marty's back, though? Why aren't we just talking about Marty? And Marty really wants you to be talking about Marty when we get into this match.
Oh, my God. Like, it's not just the fact that he switched to what you'd kind of commonly associate as the New Rockers singlet, the shorts and the vest top and all of that. If I can borrow
most 90s,
a grapple,
80s gear you'll ever see.
Yeah. If I can borrow a grapple trope here, Marty Jannetty worked the 1994 Royal Rumble. This is October 1995, and you'd think it had been 30 years since Marty Jannetty was last with WWE.
Oh my God.
Time has once again ravaged this man's career. Like, I cannot. That would be like, that's just a little bit longer, but not much longer. That's basically Kenny Omega's injury layoff with diverticulitis. It's how long Jannetty has been gone. And you would think they have dusted him out of the cave, like where he was frozen in time or something. Even the music, man, like the music feels like you can hear the gramophone like crackle because they've had to dig it out of like a record collection or something.
Proper. It's like when Roman kept the Shield theme for all those years, wasn't it? It's like, at least give him his own song. And then they fucking labor him with Leif Cassidy, which we're obviously going to get to, and that gets even worse. And for some reason, they're really into the 70s, despite never being around in the 70s. We'll get there eventually, but fuck. Yeah, he does. He looks like an artifact. As a kid, though, I was still into it, because to me, I was still buying. I thought I was just a stupid kid. As much as I love Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty was actually the better of the two, and I always believed that as a kid. And I was a very, very wrong kid in that. But I was just, you were perennially excited. It was like, you know, the way Eminem puts a new, every time he used to put an album out, his opening song would always be some variation on "Guess Who's Back." I'm back. I'm Eminem. Here I am again. What's my name? Like, it'd always be it's like Marty Jannetty. He's just constantly that. He's constantly that single. You never really get the album, but you always get the "Guess Who's Back." Marty's back. Tell a friend. It's like he constantly rides that wave, fucks off again, and then comes back again.
That's what it is. He's the innovator of that meme template, isn't he? It's so over, we're so back. That's Marty Jannetty's entire career.
And it never works out. It never ever works out. And yeah, I do feel like obviously, like, you know, we talked about the Goldust character, and yeah, he's just a man who really likes films, but, you know, they give him the full, you know, it's not quite the big entrance, is it? It's not quite, you know, we haven't quite gotten to the point where we're putting Instagram filters on. It's just a bit of gold lighting and a bit of like gold glitter kind of falling off the sky. It does look cool.
The music's not perfect yet, is it? It's a looping theme rather than the full song. It's close, but it's not
Jim Johnston's sat backstage with the guitar like he was with Vader, waiting for him to walk to the ring just to figure out exactly how he's gonna wear it. Genius at work. He's got to have time to play to put it together. But like, they've given him the big build up and the promos, and like, say, the promo before this, and everyone's obsessed with what it's going to look like when he appears, and they give it the big entrance, but it is just always odd. And they literally say, and there's no Marlena either, just to say, as far as a character. She, of course, would come later as well. But it's all this build up, and if you didn't know, you know, who Dustin Rhodes was as a young kid, maybe I knew Dustin Rhodes was, just hadn't put it together, it was him. It's not quite, and then the bell rings, but it's like the bell rings and the commentary's like, hang on, what happened to his hair? Because the wig immediately falls off. And then he just goes straight into selling for Marty Jannetty for about 15 minutes, it feels like. It's a big bit, it's like the MVP debut, isn't it? It's a big build up. And then the bell rings, and it's like, oh, fuck, was I supposed to be into this bloke? Because he just looks like a bloke right now.
Yeah, you cannot believe how, because obviously he comes out with the wig and the gown and everything, and you haven't seen at this point, maybe it's just his hair. He's just a long-haired guy, but they don't make any ceremony of the wig coming off. No. And the crowd actually react in a bit of shock when the wig comes off. It's like, oh my God, it's a wig. It's not his hair. So they've blown a moment there. And then to your point, he takes a charge at Jannetty. So all the mystique and sort of the bizarre nature of the character is gone, because he's instantly anybody that would jump you from behind. Yeah. And to make matters worse, the baddie that jumps you from behind is shit at it, because Jannetty proceeds to kick his ass on the floor for about 10 minutes in like really boring, slow, uncoordinated action. Goldust cannot get a shot in. And it's like, so hang on, is your mystique to lull him into a false sense of security of actually thinking you were good? Is that is that like the sort of the twist here? Like, I'm quite worried about this guy. He's good. Oh no, stroke a look. He's terrible. Like, I think it was Meltzer that said it, and it stuck on this debut for years. And then Finn Martin nicked it and put it in Power Slam. Finn, if you're listening, I don't know if that's the order, but that's just how I remember it. The black ears that made him look, because of the yellow gear rather than the gold gear, made him look like a bruised banana. Like, it's just like,
I'd forgotten that reference.
That goes through my head because of all. It's not gold, is it? It's yellow. No. It's manky, fucking yellow,
dirty,
like
like a bruised banana. Like, it really is.
It is bad. This is bad.
does history remember it this way? Because, like, yeah, it's just like, I think I'd forgotten it goes this badly, because it's like he immediately tries to jump Jannetty, immediately gets bumped to the outside. Commentary are trying. There's a lot of, he's so strange. Oh, he's not even strange. I think he's bizarre. And they're just coming up with all these different words for him being a fucking weirdo. Like, that's basically the line they're driving home. While Jannetty just continues to just, as I've got written out, Jannetty does a lot. As he does like basically a snapware driver to the outside on Dustin at one point, which I'm not sure was invented in 2025. I think just Marty and whatever mind state he was in at that point just came up with it. And it's like, it reminds me, I think I probably referenced it on here before, at least the show with you and Matty. Do you remember when Val Venus debuted after all that build up and they put him in there with Too Cold Scorpio? And it might just be my memory of it. Maybe it's not as bad if you watch it back now. But like, Val Venus's like finish, it was the money shot, the splash off the top, and Too Cold Scorpio is supposed to be the jobber of the week. Takes 90% of the match, does 13 450s, 12 shooting star presses, and like 87 cartwheels into he's just inventing moves by the end of the match. And then Val Venus has to just like go to the top rope with just his shoulders sloped and go, guess I'll do a body splash for me finish. And it's such a shit. It's like all you're thinking about the Too Cold Scorpio coming out of that Flash Funk or whatever he would have been called at that point. Feels like Marty's doing the same thing, because even when it goes to the outside and Goldust takes over, it remains to be all about building to the Marty comeback. Like, maybe it's just the way things are done here, and they still think there's money in Marty, and it's not. I think if this happened on Raw today, it would be maybe someone even lower on the totem pole, and it'd be Goldust just going through them and doing all of his signature spots, doing whatever his equivalent of the Zero Miedo is, and then we go to the finish. But instead, it's built like you say, heel heat, like any other generic heel, and Marty botches / comebacks kind of fill in the space in the middle.
Oh, the chemistry, the physical chemistry is awful. Like they're just on different pages the whole way through. Like, it doesn't feel like they're like, you know, sometimes when there's a luchador that struggles to like work the left, or just if it's any kind of cultural problem, you feel like you're watching that. It's like one's got to whisper to the other, no, you need to be on this side, or no, you need to be there for this, or whatever. And that friggin' it's ugly gourd buster that Goldust has got as a finisher.
Oh my god!
Yeah, like I don't even like that move when like someone like Arn Anderson does it, but at least he's like a tight technician. It looks like shit. He gets no elevation on the throw. Marty's taking bigger bumps, like missing things in this match than what Goldust puts him away with.
The flying
and
nothing
Vince
he does
on commentary. You make the point about how they're all using different words. Vince hits androgynous for the first time because infamously that was the word that they sold Dustin on, and he didn't know what it meant. And he was like, yep, sounds good. They've just fired me for blading on a truck, so I best take the androgynous job. I want to spite me dad, whatever the stories are.
Yeah.
And then you can tell on commentary, he's like, didn't know what to make of that one. Woof. And it's like, that's a bed shitter, isn't it? That's what that is.
That's the move you call a sack of shit, because it's Kate and Cole version was, isn't it? I always hated that. Like, he could never settle. It was always like some variation of suplex. There's like 12 different versions of the Kate and Cole Goldust would get up to, and none of them really look. It was a bit like the snowplow. Al Snow was the same thing. He had 12 different moves called snowplow, but this is one of the worst. It looks terrible, and yet it comes off like, you know, there's that awkward moment with Jannetty like coming off the top, and Goldust is just standing there, and Jannetty just looks at him, and like they both stand there for what feels like 10 minutes before they go, oh, we should probably repeat the spot here and have Goldust was supposed to get his foot up, and then they go to that finish as you mentioned there, and we get Kate and Cole version 1, and it's just a rough debut. It's like it felt like one of those and then the bell rings ones, because like all the presentation before it was money. It felt big budget. It did, like time for the Tin Pot organization WWF kind of is at this point. Like all of the vignettes and all of the Goldust presentation and promos and the amount of effort and money they put into it, like it had to be better than this when they got in there. And yeah, I can't think of a worse debut.
Nah, it's just uncoordinated garbage. And again, I wouldn't even say that this was like Marty Jannetty trying to like take it. You know, I didn't sense any malice in the performance or this selfishness or anything like that. Just a total communication breakdown. Nobody is on message. Nobody's got like any. It's as if they've been told, they've just arrived at the building. They've been told, can you go out and call 10 minutes in the ring? And nothing else is being taken into account. And considering that it's Marty's comeback and Goldust unveiling, it couldn't have gone much worse.
And in Marty's head, those two things are equal, and they're just not. There's points in both of their like overlapping careers. One job was probably a bit more important than the others, but yeah, we had better Goldust and worse Goldust to come in this run. I'm looking forward to getting into some of it, especially when another new returning character, returns to the Fed when we get there. But we go to some highlights from Raw again. So showing the like I said, the Yokozuna and King Mabel angle attacking Undertaker and the whole crush face thing that ends up with Undertaker coming back with the scary mask that did terrify 10-year-old me. That goes into a promo backstage with Cornette and Mr. Fuji with Yokozuna talking about how Gorilla Monsoon was trying to cause trouble between the baddies, as of course the punishments for that big angle that they repeated over and over and over again, or I guess the strife that was caused by Gorilla Monsoon in between. I'll let you fill the story beats in. We're the ones who are punished, as like I said earlier. We get our daddy haystacks here, and somehow somebody somewhere has decided that King Mabel versus Yokozuna is the match that you want to do on pay-per-view.
I'm going to say it again. It honestly feels like they've assembled as many things on a whiteboard that would make for a bad wrestling show. So the big 6-man tag, it's all very, at the moment, it's all sort of, again, it was Bill Watts' attempt, I would guess, to make Camp Cornette more than just talented jobbers. It was like, well, people need to buy that Owen can sometimes get a win over Shawn, or people need to buy that now that Bulldog's a heel, he's got a different killer instinct. Yokozuna might not be the WWF champion anymore, but he cannot just be a big fat clown. Like, he's got to be the monster he was in 1992, even if you never want to push him as one again. Mabel has just lost to Diesel. He will never have any less value. How do we give him some value back? He kills the Undertaker. Like, all of it makes enough sense on paper. And then it's a little bit like somebody said it as a joke in a meeting, and then Vince went, I love it. And then nobody's got the guts to say, I was joking. Don't make Mabel fight Yokozuna.
The bell's gonna ring.
And you know, right, there is a Coliseum video match between these two that I invite people to ask us to do in the 5-star match review, because it's like not half bad. It's from 1994. I don't know if it's a matter of both of them being a bit smaller, both of them being motivated, wanting to make a point, God knows what. But yeah, if you listen out there and you haven't left us a 5-star review before, and you fancy doing it, and you fancy, like, I guess, going and checking it out for yourselves and then seeing what me and Benno think, there's a half decent one kicking around in the Coliseum video. This is not that at all. Because I will say, did you find in the Cornette promo that obviously they wouldn't have known, maybe they would have done at this point, I don't know about the timeline, maybe they would have known that there was a bit of interest from Vader about coming in, but did this to you feel like they were almost like trialing what it might feel like if Yokozuna turned babyface? Like, just in the way he held himself backstage, and in a couple of the moments in the match, the fans were picking him over Mabel, certainly.
Definitely.
And like, just like, we don't want to turn him now, but one day, what might that look like? Because I felt like that was what this was.
Yeah, it felt a bit devil, because it's like, well, they're both baddies, but like, we've been used to Yokozuna a little bit longer, I suppose, so maybe there's that familiarity that makes him more the sympathetic baby. I guess they hadn't massively teased any real dissension at the in Camp Cornette, but he was the one who, I suppose, he got bullied around a little bit more by Cornette, so there's that easy kind of sympathy versus Mabel's, the third fake king that's on this television at the current day. So it's harder, isn't it? And he's making people carry him around, so maybe that makes it harder for him to be likable. But yeah, I could see something there, because they do obviously try it, don't they, with babyface Yoko, and then just go, you know what, let's just put him back with Cornette for a week, and then he disappeared again because of the athletic commissions, and we get all that going. But I could see the thinking, and he's a bit more mobile. There's a bit more of just maybe a babyface edge. He probably worked babyface more in his career outside of the Fed as well, so that kind of fits. But I will say, for this match, for how bad it is, I don't know what would be worse. What's worse, what being in the arena watching this match, or being in the cars they plan this match? Imagine what that smelled like. But like, the arena itself, they think that the one thing I'll give them, the one thing I'll give them is they do try and go full daddy haystacks in every way. And there is something for the dads here, in that, like, we're like, this is shit. And this has got a .66 on Cage Match. So I think most people like us listening to this, who watch this, would say it's shit. And it's a slugfest in all of the bad ways. But there is like that reaction you get from the crowd that you get, when you go to a house show and the dads are still reacting to, fucking hell, that Big Show bloke's tall, isn't he? Oh, Kane's tall, isn't he? Oh, Randy Orton, he's great, isn't he? Because he does a pose. Like there's live event acts, aren't there, that just, it's the airport test type of thing. And there is something that this crowd are into, as bad as the match is, as bad as the commentary is, as bad as the perform, and how gassed they both get by the end of it. Just simple stuff like them hitting each other and bumping does get an ooh and an ah from the crowd. There is something to be said for an attraction for the dads, I think, in the crowd here.
I'm glad you've mentioned for the dads, because my shirt was all the way off when Mabel hit that flying clothesline and Yoko took the bump off it. I'm swinging it round my head at this point. I'm like, wrestling, easy. I was just like, I knew I did that when he didn't bump this match.
When Mabel went for the bulldog and Yoko just stands there because he's too knackered to do a bump. That's when I got my top off. I was laughing my head off.
I knew what I remembered about this, and I knew the only thing I liked about it, or I thought I did, and I'd forgotten this one exchange as a result. And I just, the sheer size of them, and then the commentators sell it as well, don't they? A bit like when there would be like a chloroform soaked rag and the commentators are like, oh god, it stinks. When they hit the deck, the two of them in the ring, the commentator try and make the effect as if the ground has shook beneath them. It's that earthquake stuff, isn't it? And you're like, all right, you know what? They are massive. I can go along with that, I suppose. Like
the blocking off the sun, as the commentary continually tells you, that's about as nice as you can be.
Yeah. Buffet busters and all the rest of it. And then, like
it's the point they get knackered, because like I say, Yoko just doesn't bump for what I think is a Mabel Bulldog, which the dads would have popped for it if they'd have pulled it off, so I'm sad they didn't. But he's just like, I actually haven't read like the date sheets on this, so maybe you can fill me in, but my read on this is they're both just knackered, so they roll to the outside, they kind of haphazardly do a spot where Yoko falls on Cornette, and it just feels like the ref goes, fuck it, it's over, let's just end this. I don't really think there's a count. I think they just end it because everyone's knackered. Vince says something like, less than stellar match up there, and we all move on. Ostensibly there's a count out, but like I assume it's the plan, but it's so bad, and it's so, neither of them had the energy to do anything else anyway at that point.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where like even if they isn't calling an audible and it was the plan for them to just go 5 minutes, because what engine realistically would they have? Like you could just as easily see them having, say, one more exchange of moves, and then they can't be asked. Like maybe they had, like Mabel would occasionally go on like the bottom of the second rope, and like he's gonna hit a splash on Yoko maybe they had something like that where it was a funny visual, and it was like, but at this point, getting back in the ring was just I've not got anyone. Like they know they've got to do the peace treaty at the end between the two of them, and that's about as much physicality as they've got left.
I've never seen a match, Michael, where they go full Daddy Haystacks and also go full Davey Richards on the indies, because the post-match is literally every indie dream match you've ever seen. A bit of a stare down, and mostly because they're both out of breath, they take the time getting to it, they come face to face, and they're teasing what they're going to do. Show respect. It's the ROH, it's the ROH like handshake, the code of honor upheld, just a big hug between two big lads, and they pose off. Full Davey Richards.
This is not why like Mabel got buried, It's not because he injured Diesel, and it's not because he injured The Undertaker over about 3 weeks. It's because this was the original curtain call. This was how people got punished. Triple H should have seen this and realised what was going to happen to him. That's a quick one. Just because I don't know off the top of my head, did Cornette or anybody else ever get Mabel in the door at Ring of Honor? One of those like weird novelty bookings?
No, I don't think so. I could imagine he's the type that like Danielson would have worked on like a rando indie just to see if he could pull it off. Like he worked Kamala, didn't he? And he worked a couple of like monsters from back in the day. I can't think of that happening. Big Vis, he was still getting that Fed payday, wasn't he? With his
that was it.
Comebacks.
Obviously, sadly, like Nelson Frazier passed, but like you think when he got released as Big Daddy V, like it wasn't like there weren't other crimes against Ring of Honor committed with the likes of your friggin' headbangers or the Shelton Benjamin runs and the like. So I could have seen worse than Big Daddy V just rocking up as a bit of a surprise in at least one of the latter Cornette runs, certainly.
I'd have taken him over the Headbangers in 2000s ROH, 2010s ROH, not even that. Jesus Christ, it's a real thing that happened, folks. Don't look it up. It's not good stuff. We go from there. into I feel like it's going to be Michael's time to shine. I told you, bad material brings out the best podcasting because I've got so much to say about this next segment, and I imagine you will. Obviously, we have the commercial for Survivor Series 1995, which is a big event. Obviously, we'll be covering in future as well. Always like those little ads, but of course, I am talking about what Vince throws to next, where Vince seems to get confused about where Doc Hendricks is, and he's in the ring. He's like, yeah, we're going to go to Doc. Oh, where's Doc? Oh, there he is. He's in the ring. He's in the ring. It's time for the public forfeiture, which is the word in the ad here. And I don't know, I might let you take this away, mate, as Dean Douglas comes out, of course, made up and happy and excited, and he's going to be named the Intercontinental Champion. But you know what? Even having been battered by 4,000 Marines, even having been taken off this show, and, coincidentally not having to drop a belt in the ring, that might be a part of the story as well, even in one of his biggest moments of disgrace, all eyes are still on Shawn, aren't they? As Shawn Michaels comes out here, and I'll let you take it away, mate, looking like only Shawn Michaels can in such a moment. This visual is burned into my brain as a kid watching this. I maybe took some of the wrong lessons.
If I could reach over the soundboard and press Wilborn's "Oh my God" button that's in the studio right now, I would have already pressed it for Shawn Michaels' Pele jacket that he's got.
That's what I was thinking of. Can we get one? We need to get you one.
I want one. I want the Warrior Royal Rumble 1991 one with the USA flags everywhere. And I want Shawn Michaels' Pele that looks a little bit like he might have borrowed it from Making a Difference Fatu. So maybe Triple H hooked him up from the opener. He's wearing a button-up shirt underneath it, right? With his sort of smart casual trousers. At least we know one thing. He's not going to the nightclub after this show because the only kicking he'd get is for the dress senses they nicked off with his coat.
He's got his brown rugby dad slip-ons on, hasn't he? It's literally work pants. That, to be fair, early 2000s in the UK, if you were going on a night out in a club, you'd probably wear some work pants and some shoes, not unlike that. But it's the blue and white striped formal shirt underneath the most casual Pele jacket you've ever seen. It's a fucking look. But does he not pull it off? Come on, he pulls it off.
He's amazing. He looks amazing. JR says he only got his stitches out yesterday. I don't know if he's on about the clothes or the ones above his head. Shawn as well. For those that haven't seen it, he takes his time. He lets it sink. It's a bit like that old wrestler psychology, isn't it? That just when you think you can't go any slower, go slower. And Shawn Michaels is playing through that in his head. That is the money. Give them all the time on your face. Let them examine every last cut and bruise on those eyes. Let them examine the expression. Let them make their minds up about exactly how you feel having to give over this Intercontinental title. And I mean, because let's praise him now because he's not going to get a fucking thing afterwards when Shawn holds the belt out and Dean snatches it. And he knows, the franchise knows, that he's basically about to have the only good 3 minutes of his entire WWF run. He puts the fucking thing around his waist. The graphic comes up, new Intercontinental Champion. Dean's like, well, this is the one for the kids. If nothing else, I've got
the photos.
This. These bastards are going to job me out in 15 minutes. So I'm having it now. He laughs in Shawn's face. He goes, well, that was easy. Dean's music, his awful University of Knowledge music playing, as Shawn has to walk away and look back at this shit show in the ring, a man that he hates, right? And as one last little bit of irony before we get onto the match, right? And I don't know if you've got this in your notes. Amongst the many reasons why the Kliq had decided to be pissed off with Shane Douglas, and there were many, was that at a prior house show, a couple of weeks before this, Shane Douglas was injured, said he didn't think he could work, and the Kliq, featuring Shawn Michaels, abused him because, and I quote, everybody works hurt.
Irony of ironies.
The business.
Beautiful. He is clearly loving because he knows that's the thing. I think if this was today, even in his position, the heel would be almost too respectful to proper ham it up like he does. You know, they'd be a little bit like, oh, okay, fair enough, and then they maybe play it up. But he plays it up, and Sean does, for his part, go full dignified babyface, like the amount of long looks back he does, and like the amount of like he literally you make sure you see the whites of his eyes, not that there's much white left, as he stares at Douglas, putting the belt on backwards. I always love that, and then turning it around and putting it on. He's there every moment of it. You're not looking. I was looking at Dean because I enjoyed the way he put the belt on, but everyone else is looking at Sean for his reaction. It's Hogan at Mania 6, isn't it? As he goes off into the sunset and Warriors in the ring. Your eyes are on Sean, and like it's in stages. It's that moment. Then he goes to walk down the steps and he stops again. Then he leaves, and it's that famous "Tell Me a Lie" shot, isn't it? That he kind of looks back over his shoulder, and you get the full close up of like the how moody his eyes are. He's genuinely got two black eyes. He does look like complete shit. But every part of your sympathies with Sean, isn't it? Like there really isn't much. Dean's doing his best to get some heat out of this, but really the heat's not in. The heat's on the fucking 3,000 Marines who've taken Shawn Michaels out, and it's all about Sean, and it's all about. You could have sent anybody out. You probably could have even sent Brett out then, dare I say it, and it wouldn't have mattered because all anyone in that moment wanted to see was for Sean to go, you know what? Fuck you, no, I'm having my belt back. And he doesn't do it, and it just piles the sympathy on him. And like you said, turns a massive negative into a gigantic positive. You know, Sean, who can be unlikable at times, actually comes across likable in this moment.
I mean, Benno, I wish they had sent Brett out rather than what we got.
A lot.
Yeah. Like I'd have taken Brett, I'd have taken Owen, quite frankly, over what we got instead.
Poor Razor.
I thought I thought I'd expended all my energy on being angry with Razor Ramon's treatment of Shane Douglas in our last podcast. I should have just saved it. He's walking down the aisle going 4 times. Why not? Why not? 4 times? Might as well. I mean, sorry, I'll let you recap it because I'm going to blow me top.
Well, that's the thing, because the room is deflated. Like, and even if it is Razor, he's coming out in a moment where everyone's thinking about Sean. They're not really thinking about Razor. And I think maybe he knows that as well. So that's maybe partly why he plays it up. But he's such a cunt. And like the opening to the match is just like, I feel like in both kayfabe and non-kayfabe terms, just this deflating Razor control segment where the people in the audience don't really care about the match, and it's just shit on Dean because again he's not letting him get anything in. He takes the absolute bulk of this thing once again.
He takes the absolute piss, is what he takes. Like it's this boring armbar with the added like seasoning of slapping him around the head like a stupid idiot, right? There's a point where they go to the floor and he tips a bottle of water over his head for no reason, right? But so it's the same template as the last month where Razor's a better wrestler, he's a better athlete, he's funnier, he's cleverer. Dean Douglas is a useless tosser. He's just a bag of shit out there. And the thing is, what you know about the machinations, just like last month, is that every time Dean looks bad, Razor is probably using that to bury Dean backstage. So every time there's a chemistry issue, every time it looks like Dean's not really firing up, Razor's not selling either. Why? Because it's making Douglas look like a loser backstage. They were pissed off with him, Benno. All right, I read around this afterwards. They were pissed off with him because in their minds, Dean Douglas did a bad job with the roll-up finish the prior month. You know what? When Razor's in the wrong position.
Yeah. Where Razor literally makes it like gravitatory. I think that's a word. Gravity is a thing, and there's no way he could have grabbed anything other than his bollocks to get that pin. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, cannot even work. He cannot even do a pull the tights roll up. And then you see that play out over and over again in this one. There's a bit where, it's where, so Dean's, what am I saying? As a heel teacher, Dean's comeback spots are like so brief and fleeting. It makes no sense. There's one where like he basically runs away from Razor to escape. Runs away. He runs in at the corner and he tries to do like a kind of rotating, flying nothing. Right? Because it allows him to be an athlete for a split second. Razor catches him with a choke slam, and you think, well, that's going to look pretty good. And then he just fucks him off. He's not even got him around the neck. He's not got him around the chest. It's just like, nah. And Douglas has got to take a bump off it. Yeah, Douglas has got to take a bump off it. But of course, it looks shit. And backstage, he's trying to kill me choke slam. Yeah, it's
Sandbagged it, cunt. Yeah.
It's dirty business again here. Like two
It's so
pay-per-views in a row.
that
So bad.
that Chuck Slam spot was always weird. You kind of forget it's not just a thing he did to make for a big show. It was genuinely something in his arsenal that just didn't fit. Maybe he's making fun of Sid. I don't know why he does it, but yeah, the catch is good. It's just literally you should call that move the sack of shit, not the other one that he does. Gets another big pop for the Razor's Edge and tease. Again, the crowd are like, moves are over, big moves are over, and they're still with him even at this late point in the night. The biggest thing for me, on the match, you said that about the finish going wrong last time and Dean being blamed. This is the laziest, both men's shoulders are down, allegedly kind of double pin you will ever see in your life, and I'm not blaming Dean for it. It's Dean who doesn't get his hand anywhere near looking like it's on Razor to even give you that moment of doubt, but I think it's Razor purposely positioning himself from a really terrible looking back body drop so that his head's kind of in a certain place where Dean can't do anything to put anything on Razor. Razor knows that. It's like a double cross. It's like within the double pin, there's a double cross because Razor very clearly has his arm on Dean. Dean very clearly gets his leg on the ropes, which takes a couple of replays for Vince McMahon to realize, but it's literally off a fucking backdrop, and you can literally see people in the front row with their head in their hands going, the fuck was that? How's that the end of the match? What have I just seen? It's so half-assed, and I feel like he dogged it that too, just as well, just to make, even though that was like a justified finish for Dean, it just made him look even worse, because at the end of the day, he got pinned by a fucking sloppy backdrop, and that was that, and that's unfortunately pretty much the beginning of the end for this character.
Oh, criminal, man. Absolutely criminal. And you mentioned about how the replays, like it took a while for Vince to spot it, right? Because it's Jerry Lawler, isn't it, as the heel, and heels are going to stick up for heels. So maybe he's trying to make something up. Bobby Heenan would do this all the time. So Lawler says, I'm pretty sure Dean had his foot under the ropes. And then like Lawler, JR and Vince are like, I don't know about that. Second replay. I mean, you could spot it on the first angle, but the second replay, Jim Ross is like, oh yeah, he might have a point there. And Vince is like, nope. And then the final replay, like Vince is like, oh, actually, yeah. But then it's basically like, well, that's the way it is. Tough shit. Razor makes history. First 4-time champion. Never mind. Like, it's not on any of this. And like, Vince doesn't sound happy with it because why? How could you be when you've just seen what you've just seen? But it is so crystal clear. Like the last month when JR says, man, Dean has driven such a wedge between Kid and Razor. And Vince says, well, no, I think the wedge was between them already. Whatever stock he has left, if there's even any, he has once again just sold it. Like, he does not know why he's bothered spending money. This contract in Vince's mind is clearly not worth the paper it's printed on, and the Kliq have been directly responsible for it. Like, it's so bad. And something hit me on this one. Maybe you could be generous here and say like Razor was tired or something, because he's always wrestled a tag, and that's the story he was invested in.
A big night out.
Whatever. Yeah, yeah. It was a night of the weekend in Hawaii. But, like, let's just go back through here just a second, right? In Your House 1, Brett wrestles twice. In Your House 2, Road Dogg and Jeff both wrestle, and they both do the singing. In Your House 3, Bulldog wrestles twice. In Your House 4, it's Razor. What's going on? What is this?
No wrestlers is the answer. And when Bulldog does a better job of a double duty on a night, you're on to a loser, aren't you? That's all. Like, that does paint it in a light, doesn't it? Absolutely.
He's just
Jesus.
I just there's one, Jerry Lawler got a good line in that I quite liked. So when like Razor's like trying to get the belt off Dean and they're competing for it and stuff, JR goes, like, I know Shawn Michaels, he's gonna have a hard time watching this. And King goes, do you not see his eye? He's gonna have a hard time watching anything.
You're always good for those one-liners. And that's kind of it. Like, for Dean Douglas, I was going to say, do we see him again? There's the Ahmed Johnson, Buddy Landell thing coming up, isn't there? And then outside of that,
that's it.
Nothing else?
And that's your lot. That's your lot. He'll be back in ECW by January, I think. Dear me.
We'll give him a proper send-off when we get there. Hard done by was our Troy. I think it is very fair to say. But
just before we move on from all of this mess, the cut to the back and Sean being on the superstar line. I want that audio. I want that audio.
The way they shoot, I know we say it every time, but the way they shoot them, they're such bastards, because it really does look like Sean is in the middle of an impassioned conversation telling you what happened to him, to like clearly some fan who's just rang up and is chatting to Sean because they was weird it in a way. Well, Sean's on the line right now if you want to call, to get your replayed audio of him talking for about 30 seconds, and then and you know, Gene Oakland in the past and whoever, just shilling you on it on merch and such. But like, they do shoot it really well, and he looks like he's really into it. He looks like he's telling you a real tale of what you don't understand. There were 4,527 Marines. They all had jarhead haircuts. That's how I know they were Marines. And you won't believe what happened to me. It feels like he's giving the full beans. I'm
picturing the Syracuse nightclub looking like that bit out of Kill Bill Part 1 where it's the bride and all the people she's got to kill. It's not Shawn Michaels in the club.
Oh, honestly, imagine being a fly on the wall and seeing that happen. What a shame, but yeah, sure. The hotline was my highlight in this little bit, as we we do go from there. We have a little bit of more shilling, and then we have Bret the Hitman Hart coming out for what would be his strange appearance on this show. Not in a match. In fact, he is just there to do commentary. And they do this whole weird thing where we're like, he's running off Lawler, and it's like a cartoon. It's like Tom and Jerry, isn't it? Like, literally, it's Bret and Jerry. Like, Bret chases him off, then Jerry tries to run back, then Bret chases him off again. Are they killing time? It seems to happen all 3 or 4 times before Bret finally sits his ass at the commentary desk.
Like, Bret sees him coming, like Lawler does. Like, initially it's a really good bit, isn't it? It's like, he better not come out here and try and take my chair.
A good excuse, and then to get rid of him.
Immediately bails because he's scared, and then Bret gets like a couple of good digs in. Like, it's just like they'll always hate each other. You can't. Do you remember, we've talked about this already? But when Bret turns in '97, when you knew he was a heel for real, was because Jerry Lawler started backing him. And you're like, oh my god,
it's done.
Oh no, what is it? Yeah,
Batman and the Joker on the same side.
Yeah. So the first couple of digs, it's good stuff. It's like, and it's Bret, of course, is in the Calgary Hitman jersey. It's a bit of a hockey fight, isn't it? He's going in for it like that. Yeah. So you know that Bret's thought about that and what it should look like. But then, as you say, are they running down the clock? Because it is. I think it's 3 times, and it's not just on the aisle. He gets all the way back, and Bret just like guns it. He doesn't like do the fake running around the ring run. He sprints for him.
He slaps the hands of the same fans over and over again. Like, I'm sure I'd be made up of front row getting some Bret Hart daps, but it's strange.
Maybe we just need to give Bret credit here. Maybe because that was actually a good bit of action. Maybe he knew what the following 20 minutes was about to look like and thought, well, I best give him something.
Honestly, this match, I've got more to say about. Like, it's the pre-match for me, because we get Bulldog coming out and making like his entrance. Obviously, he's with Cordy for this one, and then before Diesel can make his entrance, we have Doc Hendricks strangely backstage chilling some merchandise. It's the Dudes with Attitudes t-shirt, isn't he, selling? And he just happens to run into Diesel, who's about to make his entrance, and he's like, Diesel, can I get away? Diesel, can I get away? Diesel just ignores him, and then eventually he gets his attention, and he's like, oh, it's something like, have you got anything to say? And Doc, he just turns around and he goes, Doc, I'm feeling awfully funky tonight. And then he turns around and walks into the ring. He's like, what was that? Like, why is that the line? I don't get it. Is that a reference? Am I missing something? So strange.
It is once again like, you know, like all the stories before, like the shoot interviews and the podcasts were just part of the normalized conversation. And wrestlers would say, oh man, like, it's not what happens out there. You want to hear the stories on the road. And as a young wrestling fan, you'd be like, oh, I'd give anything to have been in those cars and listen to those conversations. And this is just the millionth reminder that some of the conversations were absolutely shite. Just a bunch of jumped up man babies popping each other with daft lines. One of them, a week earlier, would have said, I'm feeling funky, or somebody said it in a club, or Bam Bam Bigelow said it thinking he was going to pop the boys, and it went down like a fart in a church, and now they're ripping the piss out of Bam Bam Bigelow, and it's an inside joke. Like, I don't know. They held a glass to the wall while like Bam Bam was with a lass, and they heard him saying, I'm feeling funky, and now they're going to get it. They've had a bet with each other of who can get it on TV, and Diesel's done it on pay-per-view. However, filming Diesel coming out through that curtain from behind,
that's cool.
Looked awesome. That looks so good. But every time with these shitty little Diesel lines, like, it's so cheesy, innit? I love Diesel. but just don't ask him to do these lines, these wanners. Terrible.
I love Diesel the wrestler. The promo, I hate Diesel. I love Kevin Nash. Like whenever that's a Diesel line, a Kevin Nash line would be something genuinely funny and wisecracking.
Yeah,
that's Diesel. Or it's kind of a bit of a mix of the two, but it does feel like he's on his last legs here as champion very clearly. And like I know he's talked about it in shoots since then. That obviously the post match to this that we're gonna get into is part of the reason. I think he realized his days in general were numbers in the WWF, but they've gone with Bulldog as a choice here in this main event. And there's been some bad matches on this card that I've enjoyed breaking down with you, Michael. But this one, it's a special type of bad. As like Bulldog is in there, I do think out of his depth as like a top line heel, he's doing. I said 1-2-3 Kid is actually quite indie on these shows in style. I actually mean that as a bit of a compliment. Bulldog is indie in the like, you shut up, like to an invisible fan, just for something to do. He's turning to the front rows and jaw-jacking with them because he can't think of what else to do to be a baddie. It's so slow paced. It's all there to build to this terrible, terrible finish. It's just not good stuff. Like it is just not good for a Bulldog.
It's appalling. Like I time stamped it 1:37 and 30 minutes on the Netflix like thing. Bulldog puts down this lying down leg lock and he holds it for nearly 2 straight minutes. And then he takes off the leg lock and he drops a few elbows on the leg and he kicks at the leg. And Cornette distracts the referee, and then Cornette does a bit of stuff on the leg, and then Bulldog once again goes to the lying down leg lock. And then he's like, I've done this quite a while. I'll half apply a Boston Crab, and I've got this one flip bump I can do when Diesel kicks me off. So we'll do that 3 times. And it is a loop. It is just a loop of that.
Endless.
The lying down leg lock, Boston Crab. The lying down leg lock, the shitty sharpshooter. The lying down leg lock.
Brett hates
I hate it. There's one of them where like Bulldog grabs Diesel's legs. And at school when you do like a wheelbarrow race in sports day, it's like he's trying to do that. And Diesel's like, this is not a move, Davey. I'm going to have to kick you off. Like Jim Cornette on the floor is doing elbow drops just to try and like
create a bit of movement.
Oh my God. This is, you were watching, not to sort of, be hyperbolic about this because you pointed out we are coming to the end of the Diesel run and it is like going out with a whimper. It's the worst way for it feeling. It's the end of the Diesel run. It's the end of a big experiment. Quite honestly, it's feeling like the end of the Fed, isn't it? Because
a little bit, yeah.
This is dying on its arse in front of you. They've turned a lifelong babyface heel. They've had him pin the world champion to get a title match, which was rare back then.
True.
And the fans could not give a shit. And the wrestlers cannot wrestle them back into life. The Bulldog is a guy that's got this reputation because of the matches with Brett and the matches with Shawn and some of the tag matches of Diesel was doing great guns with Brett and the match with Shawn really had its moments, but we've given him Sid and we've given him Mabel. We need to give him one of the workers. Oh God, how's this going wrong? So like, it's just dead end after dead end after dead end after dead end, and it is so bleak. The match is, if people are watching this and have heard about how bad this match is, I still recommend you see it with your own eyes, because I don't think in our best efforts we can do justice to how like almost impressively boring this is. You kind of sit there watching going, how's he going back to the lying leg lock, the lying down leg? How's he doing that? Like this lying down leg lock leaves Bulldog completely open for Diesel to rake the face. And even Kevin Nash must be thinking, I've done this 3 times now. I can't just keep countering this. Like, and then the finish. I mean,
you can tell they're both kind of probably thinking back to, okay, so when I was in there with Shawn and Brett, what did we do in this moment in the match? And the problem is that's exactly what you say. Diesel's best matches with Shawn and Brett. Sid's best matches with Shawn and Brett. Going up and down the roster, they're with Shawn and Brett. Bulldog's best matches with Shawn and Brett. Guess who's not in this match? Shawn or Brett? Brett's on the commentary desk, but he can't help you here, Davey. He can't SummerSlam 92 you're into something here. and the two of them just don't have any ideas. And that's exactly it. There's no one there to create any movement. Even worse than that, they make the stylistic choice to, like you say, go after the knee, and then Diesel's having to sell his knee, and he's having to limp around the ring, which creates even less movement and makes him look even less coordinated, which doesn't work. And the only story they're telling in this match is it's the pie face bit, isn't it? It's Diesel, pie face, and Brett, which is obviously, foreshadowing for what's to come with them too. And then there's, they go back the other way around, and it's Bulldog, pie face, and Brett, which gets Brett involved. And like I say, if goodwill was kind of out the window with some of what they did with the last pay-per-view and some of the booking that they had even in this pay-per-view, and the tease of Shawn and all of that stuff, they didn't give two fucks, because after sitting through this show, they give you this finish where Brett rolls into the ring and it's just a DQ. And it's a schmoz finish, and that's that. Like, it is just so anticlimactic, and it's not even like the action before it was anything to shout about. It's like you said, genetically modified to be bad. And there's some bad stuff on this pay-per-view that, like I say, we've managed to find entertainment value in, I think. There's no entertainment value to be had here. Like, this is just a fuck you to the audience, unfortunately.
Well, totally, man. And, like, I want to factor this in, I guess, because ultimately there is something that occurs here that is, to me, kind of my Bret Hart, Tom McGee, kind of my WWE Vault all-timer, if that's what we want to call it now that the Vault is finally unleashing things. So earlier in the match, Diesel was apparently really unhappy with Bret's physicality, when Diesel pie faces him.
Right.
Apparently he wanted Bret to be more physical so he didn't look like such a prick when he pushes him back. Bret just kind of puts his hands on him, and apparently Diesel was working pissed off because he was expecting Bret to swing for him or something. Nash says a lot of things in a lot of shoot interviews, but so he's then got that little bit of a chip on his shoulder for the rest of the match that he thinks Bret's kind of messed that up. So already there is this underlying tension that's going to re-emerge backstage when there's going to be more arguments and more back and forth and the like. And obviously, because there's no finish, you get the heels coming out to separate Bret and Diesel. Bulldog just leaves, by the way. So it looks like he doesn't matter that his match and his world title shot's been thrown out. So Bret and Diesel have their fight. And it's the Bam Bam lads. It's the Godwins and it's the Guns and it's Bam Bam that come out to, none of the real stars, come out to separate Bret and Diesel as the show goes off the air. Vince apologizes for having to go off the air, thanking the audience for joining him. You feel like he's apologizing for something else than them just having to go off the air. If you stack up that Vince kind of throws away the Razor and Diesel finish, the Razor and Dean Douglas finish, apologizes here for, well, all of this, clearly is unhappy with how the Goldust presentation has played out. You can just hear it. If you listen to Vince, you know his voice. This is the famous Meltzer report. The In Your House pay-per-view ended with Vince McMahon throwing his glasses and headset down at the commentary table in disgust and saying, fucking horrible, immediately after the show went off the air. Benno, there is not a single bit of footage in my life I need more than that. Because 1995, oh my God, what a maneuver! Vince McMahon being the boss and Diesel having to look down at that and see that and get backstage knowing that he's in, not just for the bollocking of a lifetime, but for the absolute nailed on, you're putting Bret over at Survivor Series, big man.
You know he's done.
That entire scene, goddamn, what I wouldn't give to see that.
Just to kind of just imagine being like Nash in that moment in the ring and just literally having that happen into your face. But at the same time, it's like, he's not the guy to get mad at, I don't think. Like, clearly the experiment hasn't quite worked, as they said. I think you said it on the first Housekeeping. We'd try, wouldn't we? He's tall, he's cool, he's charismatic. We'll give it a go. Whether it's worked or not, that is not the issue on this night. Like, the problem is the booking, the problem is the finishes, the problem is the layout of the card, all of the creative that went into putting this shit show of a pay-per-view together and putting that shit show of a main event in and putting Nash in there with Davey. They're all decisions that happen outside of his power. And it's one of them. It's like, people bring up like the Shawn versus Bret thing, and it's almost a race to the bottom when it comes to the worst WWF champion of the mid-90s as far as drawing goes and all that stuff, despite how, world class and best in class the two of them are in ring. Unfortunately, it's Diesel out of the three who has this, this lowest ebb, this pay-per-view, particularly being a big example of it. But it is Ely, you've got to turn the camera inwards, haven't you? Because it's more everything around it and more everything they put together for this night. Like, be mad at your fucking self, mate, because like there's a much with the pieces available, like we said, with Brett, with Owen, with all the other things you could do. There's so much better things you could have done on this night.
And like the shows ran short up to that point. And now, well, like so many things have like been timed out poorly, or the production's gone wrong, and he's still having to go off the air in a bit of a rush and in a bit of an apology and all that sort of stuff. It's again, I keep going back to this. It is wrestling has this way where it can look as if they have designed a show to be as bad as it is.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like something like Heroes of Wrestling. You think to yourself, yeah, but you couldn't actually make something as bad as that. Like that, you couldn't write a show as bad as that. And it's like, well, they managed it. It sometimes is so awful. It almost feels like they tried. Like if Vince wasn't the boss, but he was the head of creative. If this was Bill Watts and he was 100% in charge of this, you would think the wrestlers and the agents got together to get him fired. Do you know what I mean?
It's the dressing room turning against the Premier League manager, isn't it? It's
yes,
like you're gone.
Exactly.
You're the scapegoat. The players have been crap, but now it's actually you. You're the problem.
But by this point, Vince has got rid of the other guy that might have even had half the responsibility, has booked the show, has booked the card, is promoting the wrestlers, is doing his WWF again. He's the dressing room that's been lost and the manager and has to deal with the consequences as if he's just sacked himself.
And he's also Motson doing the play-by-play somehow in this scenario. How's he doing it all?
God, you've got to watch it. Honestly, I hope I hope people really do. I want them to watch us and listen to us, but I hope they sit through this and just. This is on Netflix, Benno.
Someone's going to be trying to watch the next episode of Friends, and they're going to watch this. They're going to watch Diesel selling the leg instead. Jesus Christ, wouldn't wish that on any man. But no, you are right. It's like for context and fair. That's the thing. We've still had a fun time talking about it. I want to get back to the fun of In Your House, like 1, 2, and 3, though. And it's coming, but 5's a bit of a struggle as well to come. The dark days aren't over, aren't they? But it could be worse. We could have been in the building, because after that they got saved up. Sid versus Henry Godwin, Owen and Yoko versus Bam Bam and Savio. Again, disparate parts you could have done more with, but Yoko working double duty actually, now that I think about it. Jesus Christ. Poor bloke. Hope he was all right. I hope he just stood on the apron for the majority of that. And of course, Brett in the main event, which I bet got the loudest pop of the night, even Sean notwithstanding, beating Isaac Yankem, the current mayor of Knoxville, Glenn Jacobs, in a 14-minute main event. Maybe we'll track that. Maybe that turned the whole thing round, and maybe if we had that at the end of this tape, it'd be a more worthwhile endeavor. But for science,
I love that thick black line of like, right, this is the last time he's going to fight a dentist. Promise. He's in the world title match at the next pay-per-view. He's done them all. He's finally
one more and we're done.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, well, of course we'll be talking that world title match in the fallout of such on the next Housekeeping. But there we go. We exercised a demon, Michael. We've got through that. It's the difficult 4th album when it comes to this podcast. I think we're through it. The only way is up now, mate. But I'm glad I did it with you.
Oh, it was fantastic. As you said at the very start of this, more fun to review and chat shit about than watch. So I think we're on the lucky side of things as far as In Your House 4 goes. I was glad to podcast this one.
Well, like I say, we got the fallout of Survivor Series 95. We've got one more Davey main event, and then a couple more next year as well. And it's all roads leading to WrestleMania 12. So looking forward to the build to that and to breaking all that down through the In Your Houses with you, mate. But yeah, I don't know. Anything else to say? Anything else we should do? Go for a long walk now. I think just we've exercised some In Your House demons and just clear our heads.
I need a breather in the Great White North. I suppose that all there is to do is to drop a couple of plugs. I'm available at Michael Hamflett on Twitter /X. Search WhatCulture in general for any of our daily wrestling podcasts. And please go and have a look wherever the links are available for our live tour. We're going to be in Manchester, Belfast, Glasgow, and London, and Las Vegas in March and April. The road to WrestleMania goes through WhatCulture Wrestling. So get yourself online, check out the tickets. We'd love to see you there in person for nonsense not too dissimilar to this, Benno. And depending on what dates they pick, they might indeed get a bit of real life Benno and Hamflett in your house along the way, mightn't they?
There you go. Yeah, might well see a familiar face or two in Belfast. Very good luck with the tour, mate. Very excited to see those tickets go on sale. But yeah, on our end, obviously, yeah, GRAPPL, wherever podcasts are sold. Noe, we're in the midst of our Dealer's Choice month, which is a big month for us, as we all we can force each other to pick what we're all doing through the month as well. Which I might just pick In Your House for now. I think that might be might be boxed off.
You don't need to
just do it again.
Get them to some...
Fancy guesting, mate. We'll have you come over. Once is enough, I think. But that's going on over there, obviously. And yeah, follow me in all the regular places, and plenty more content where that came from. But yeah, on that note, yeah, at Benson Richard E on Twitter is me.
I guess that all leaves us to say is until next time, thank you for the house.
Good night, all.